And welcome to our plant engineering webinar, Engineering Document Control, the key to reliable, safe, and efficient plant operations, sponsored by Synergist Software. I'm your moderator, Gary Cohen. Very happy to be with you today on behalf of Plant Engineering. All right, now we get to the reason you guys are here, where I get to introduce our wonderful speakers for today. First, we have Livia Wiley, industry leader with Synergist Software. Livia brings more than 25 years of experience in process simulation and industrial automation with deep expertise in industrial software and digital transformation. She's held leadership roles at Aviva, Schneider Electric, Honeywell, and Aspen Technology. With a background in chemical engineering and decades of industry experience, she understands the operational realities plant teams face and how engineering information can either introduce risk or drive performance. We also have Craig Schuler, who is a solutions architect at Synergist Software, where he supports sales and customer engagement efforts through technical demonstrations, webinars like this one, and solution design focused on engineering document management. With a background spanning help desk support, implementation, training, CAD drafting, and SQL database work, he brings a practical systems-level perspective to solving complex document and workflow challenges. He works closely with engineering and operations teams to translate technical requirements into scalable EDMS solutions. That is it for me here up at the top. Livia, I will happily turn things over to you.
Great. Thank you, Gary, for that kind introduction. So the format for today's webinar will be first making the case for why engineering document control is needed to successfully achieve reliable, safe, and efficient plant operations. Then I'd like to spend 10 or 15 minutes sharing with you Dow's success using Synergist Adept for its capital projects, as-built, and system integration. Then I'll pass it over to Craig, who will provide a product demonstration so you can see firsthand the benefits of Adept, and then we'll finish up with an FAQ, as Gary said. So let's begin with who is Synergist Software and what makes us an authority on this topic. Well, we've been developing, implementing, and supporting engineering document management solutions for 35 years, so we have a lot of hard-earned experience. Our flagship engineering document management system, Adept, is consistently ranked #1 in over 30 categories on G2, including best results, best ROI, highest user adoption, and best support. This year, we're happy to share that we were rewarded our efforts with the G2 2026 Best Software Award win in the CAD and PLM category. But perhaps most importantly, we're trusted by many of the world's best companies, and you'll hear from one of them today. So I thought to get started and kind of put in context the content and what we're going to discuss in this webinar, put out a poll here to ask you, how confident are you that your plant's documentation is accurate, accessible, and audit ready? I'll give you maybe 30 seconds to click on either very confident, somewhat confident, not so confident, not confident at all. All right, we have very confident, somewhat confident at 37, 38%, and not very confident. So a little bit of a mix, but right there in the middle. This is kind of where most organizations probably land. Things usually work, right? But there's some uncertainty, and it's that uncertainty that kind of creates the risk and the inefficiency that creep in. So we're going to talk today about confidence, which comes from control, and control that comes from a trusted system record. So plants are not run by documents, they're run by assets, but those assets depend on accurate contextualized engineering information. When drawings, models, and specifications are connected directly to equipment and systems, they become operationally meaningful. This is what enables maintenance teams to act quickly, operators to make informed decisions, and compliance teams to trust the data. When information is connected to assets, it becomes operationally meaningful, not just stored content. Without that connection, documents are just static files, and you can't use them for any usable plant intelligence. So we know engineering information doesn't stay static. It evolves across the entire asset lifecycle and over decades of operation. So from design to construction to commissioning and startup, operations, maintenance, and plant modification, every phase introduces new data, new documents, changing conditions, increasing risk, and new stakeholders. And over that 30 to 50-year asset lifecycle, even very small gaps can compound into major risks. So the key idea here is continuity. If information doesn't flow clearly from one phase to the next, it degrades. and eventually it becomes unreliable. So how do these gaps occur? Well, this is what typically happens in projects, right? Teams start with good information, but without proper document control, those documents leave controlled systems. That can happen through emails, shared drives, uploads and downloads from SharePoint, changing versions, contractor workflows. Versions begin to diverge. People unknowingly work on outdated data, inconsistency and uncertainty grows. And this leads to rework, schedule delays, field errors, and delayed handover. Now, the loss of control is not necessarily immediate. It begins very subtly as documents move outside of governed systems into other mechanisms. But over time, this creates divergence between teams and data sources. So at some point, the documentation no longer reflects the actual plant. So with project after project and plant modification after plant modification, project drift becomes something much bigger. It's called configuration drift. So we're no longer just talking about documents, we're talking about a disconnect between the plant and its engineering reliability. So configuration drift is the result of unmanaged change across that life cycle. When the as designed, as built, as operated, as modified states fall out of sync, you introduce real risk. That real risk can be safety issues, operational errors, compliance failures, and costly shutdowns. But not to worry, because this is exactly what EDMS was designed to solve, right? Engineering document management systems ensure that engineering information flows continuously across design, build, and operate without losing any control. It creates a digital thread where each phase builds on trusted data from the previous one. Documents and data are neatly tied together into a single source of truth. Most importantly, an EDMS keeps that engineering information aligned with real-world plant conditions. So let's take this one step further and think about digital endeavors like digital transformation. So things like analytics, digital twins, predictive maintenance, and AI, they all depend on one thing: trusted engineering data. That data needs to be complete, validated, traceable, and contextualized. If the underlying information of these tools is wrong or incomplete or inaccurate, those initiatives will fail to deliver the value that were promised. It's an EDMS that connects those physical assets with engineering information to drive that digital intelligence through trusted data. So what does good engineering document management actually look like in the plant? Well, a good EDMS addresses everyday operating challenges. These everyday risks can include incorrect drawings that lead to incorrect maintenance, poor access to drawings and data that slow troubleshooting and increase operational errors, a lack of audit trails, that ability to track who made what changes and when, can create compliance issues and safety exposure. These aren't theoretical, these are probably things that you deal with on an ongoing basis. So an effective EDMS addresses these challenges with core capabilities. It centralizes access to the latest approved documents, enforces version control, and provides full traceability. It also ensures secure collaboration and integrates into existing engineering workflows. The results are clear: fewer errors, faster approvals, better compliance, and improved productivity. So let's make this real. What does good engineering document control look like in the plant? Well, the engineering team creates accurate as-built in the system of record. When a technician scans that asset tag, they instantly pull the correct P&ID. A maintenance planner accesses the latest revision without having to call engineering. The turnaround team that's responsible for the work does so from a controlled, approved set of documents. The change or changes that were made are then captured and flow back into the system of record. So this is what a single source of truth looks like in practice. So let's talk a little bit about what the operational impact would be for good engineering document control. For growth and efficiency, EDMS accelerates project cycles, helping teams deliver faster with fewer errors. It reduces waste and costly rework by keeping everyone aligned. in the same using the same information. It creates a framework for innovation. Teams can move quickly and confidently, knowing that the data they're using is accurate and accessible. When it comes to risk, there's a major benefit. With EDMS, you could dramatically lower the chance of safety incidents because everyone has the correct real-time documentation. You're also better equipped for compliance audits with full traceability at your fingertips. And finally, you're protecting your intellectual property and ensuring data integrity, which is going to be critical to your long-term business resilience. Uptime is where the rubber meets the road, right? Maintenance and field teams often spend hours searching for the right document. With EDMS, that information is instantly available. That means fewer delays, faster fixes, and lower costs. The result is longer asset life cycles and a safer, more productive operation. So as we come to the end of, or the introduction to engineering document control, I'm going to ask you the question, which is, of that quick summary that I gave you, what do you think is the most important benefit of EDMS for you? Would that be growth and efficiency, so the ability to execute projects faster with less rework? Or would it be risk reduction, making sure that safety and compliance keeps in check? Increased uptime from the perspective of getting the right documents into maintenance's hands and improving reliability? Or are you a little bit more big picture where you want to be able to manage your data and documents over the entire asset lifecycle management, preventing that configuration drift? Or would you like to be able to use it as the foundation for some of those digital initiatives like digital twins, AI, predictive maintenance, et cetera? Or if you can't decide, I suppose you can choose all of the above. So we've got a good spread, 11, 19, 12. It's a nice, all of the above. I'm not sure I'm really surprised by that. That's the reality, right? The priorities really aren't separate. We put them in a nice, neat little list here, but growth, risk, uptime, digital, they all depend on the same foundation, which is your trusted engineering information. So not entirely surprising, but no matter what the priority is, the common thread is that you want better outcomes, and better outcomes start with trusted engineering information. So I'd like to share with you the Dow case study, how they approached the challenges they had and what they were able to achieve using Adept. So I think most people probably know Dow. Dow is a large material science company. It operates 104 manufacturing sites in 31 countries and employs more than 35,000 people with revenues of over $55 billion. Dow has a very large internal global engineering group, so they may operate as an owner-operator in capital projects, working with EPCs, or they may do their own engineering projects. In the latter case, they're creating content that is then used for the operational side of their business, which provides for some interesting, usable, and valuable synergies. So manufacturing sites often refer to the term as-built as the documents that represent how the plant was built versus how it was originally designed. So in effect, an as-built engineering document represents the digital record of the facilities. And the problem that Dow faced back in 2012 was the recognition that these as-built documents were actually managed in 20 to 30 different applications. Some of those applications were home-grown, some of them were unsupported applications. Some of them were just outdated. Some were legacy VAC systems they were using to manage documents. There were significant gaps in the usability of the systems in terms of security and reliability and performance. Things were happening where documents were lost. People were using the wrong version. People would lose documents. Some people could see things that they weren't probably supposed to see. And then in addition to that, Dow is a global company. And so they really wanted to be able to share more information globally, but in a controlled fashion. And they couldn't do that in the way that things were set up in that current environment. That environment was creating a lot of friction then with their global efforts to collaborate. So the original mandate that Dow was given was to deploy a globally consistent commercial document management system And the initial objective was to improve searchability, availability, control, and security of the documents, but also to improve or provide an entirely new way to collaborate by providing a single portal to access these as-built engineering documents. From the user's perspective, it was about providing a global portal for engineering documents. So regardless of where you went inside of DAO, you knew, or you could say, I know how the system works and I can get the information that I need. So the original mandate was a specific implementation as built, but as other needs arise, which I'll show you in subsequent slides, the flexibility of Adept allowed them to easily implement it other use cases. Okay, so DAO developed very extensive requirements based on existing solutions and work processes. Products which met the majority of the requirements, then selected for an on-premise trial. While some of the top contenders were unable to get a pilot up and running in weeks or even months, DAO was impressed that Adept could be implemented and up and running in only 3 days. The sense was that the product was intuitive and easy to use, extremely configurable, and that the Synergist staff was exceptionally responsive. So as I noted earlier, DAO first implemented Adept in 2012, migrating 20 different engineering document systems into Adept across 70 locations worldwide. Originally, this involved 1,000 Adept users, but today they have over 20,000 users in the system accessing more than 5 million documents. DAO is managing their plant as-built documentation, their equipment drawings, their capital projects. Considering the original mandate before an expansion for a typical as-built project site, a complete implementation involved anywhere from 5,000 to over 1 million documents and took anywhere from 6 weeks to 4 months from the very start to a go-live date. Now, one of the exercises DAO went through was to consider the value of the digital assets they were protecting. So, a quick back-of-the-envelope assessment was to consider if you average maybe 10 hours per drafting, reviews, and quality control per drawing, and you use a modest $100 for compensation, overhead, those sorts of benefits. That would come to about $1,000 per drawing. With 5 million documents, that would translate to $5 billion. And that was just looking at the time spent developing the drawing. Obviously, there's a lot more value to those documents when you consider intellectual property. But this was just looking at the drawing development as the calculation. So the point is, as DAO stated, until you can kind of consolidate and properly manage your content, you actually might not realize the value of what you have. So the premise being that, if this has a lot of value, why wouldn't you have it under proper control and manage it well? All right, so following the successful implementation of Adept for engineering document control and managing capital projects, DAO expanded their scope. Today, the Adept platform underpins 2 critical DAO systems. The first you see there is the MET, which is the most effective technology portal. This is the engineering standards on how to build a plant. So for example, which gasket material to use for a certain project, what steel to use, etc. The second is a global project methodology. This is the DAO standard on how to run a capital project. So for example, what checklists to use, what project deliverables are due at any given stage. And then DAO's most recent expansion was a large Adept integrator implementation, where integrator was used to unify data from 5 different enterprise systems to provide engineers with documents and information to streamline their work in the field. And I'll touch upon integrator in a couple slides from now. All right, so the next 5 slides are a summary of 5 value cases that DAO developed and how Adept delivered on those. So if you remember, DAO's original objective was to provide a single solution for accessing engineering information in a quick way. So DAO has, as I mentioned earlier, 5 million documents. From their usage data, they estimated that about 2% of those documents are viewed monthly, not the same 2%, but 2%. If we were to assume a very conservative 2 minutes saved per view, where people could find a document 2 minutes faster with Adept, so very conservative, you could calculate the cost of wasted time. Dow also implemented, or with this calculation, assessed that this wouldn't just be salary and benefits of the person that you'd be estimating here, but actually a certain amount of lost opportunity cost is also part of it. For example, what could you be doing with that time if you weren't always looking for documents? So they used a value here of $300 to represent that all-encompassing number. When they did the math, they came up with $12 million of benefit, just finding the right information more quickly. Another category of savings is around intellectual property. So Dow points to the case back in 2015 where DuPont lost a lot of value. You can look it up online. It's an interesting case because documents were removed from their system. A document management system can help prevent this from happening and can alert and let you know when something abnormal is happening. So for example, if someone copies out 9,000 documents, that's unusual, and you can track an alert and you can see what happened. But say you can also look at smaller spikes of copy outs of the document, and you might also want to go back and look at that. So when you put your documents into an EDMS like Adept, you can see exactly who did what, who viewed what, who copied what, who downloaded things, who printed documents, that sort of thing. So they estimated a value here of close to $1 million, again, just by securing those documents, not the actual value of the documents themselves. So another area of interest to them was global collaboration. Dow has large engineering teams in both India and in Houston, and they continually share documents. So traditionally, this is done through a WAN and a SharePoint. And if you've ever done this, you know it's painfully slow and unreliable in most cases. So with the implementation of Adept and its capability to replicate documents, they were able to cut down the time that it takes to substantially do this. In some cases, from 5 minutes to 15 seconds. So yes, there's a monetary advantage to this that comes from the time saved, but also represented for them a step change reduction in that friction that they had when collaborating globally between the groups of engineers. Adept also helps Dow meet critical legal requirements. Those of you who work in the chemical industry, you're certainly aware of the need to track registered equipment with OSHA 1910, and then to manage those documents from an export technology compliance. And EDMS like Adept can make a big difference in how you manage that and ensure that you're always providing the information ready for an audit or compliance. So here, two values. Less risk represents the risk reduced by implementing traceability, document control, and access. Better preparation is the money gained by always being prepared for an audit when they do occur. And the last one is around faster comprehensive handover. So when projects are done, historically, there's a significant handover. That's done in shipping boxes of manuals or devices on digital files. When Dow started managing its capital project documents inside Adept, an all digital transfer to support the as-built representation of the plant is made. This delivered a more searchable set of metadata that would impact that facility for many years to come. Dow was able to reduce the handover from months down to weeks, and they've now given the people in the plant a better way to find things that will impact that site's performance over the life of the facility. So some numbers Dow provided from us from their side for an ethylene and a polymer facility, from the perspective of what would a day of extra production mean to you by means of a quicker project handover, and you can kind of see it's into the millions of dollars of added production. All right, so poll number 3, take a minute and look at these. Which Dow benefit resonates with you most? Is it around the workforce efficiency, being able to find files faster, collaboration, so being able to work with different groups of people in different time zones or regions, project handover, getting that plant up and running weeks, months, days faster than you are doing today. Or maybe you need it as a means to secure intellectual property. Or the last one around compliance adherence. So compliance being both regulatory and maybe even some safety, reducing safety exposures. All right. Let's see what we have. Workforce efficiency up around 30%, collaboration about the same. A little bit less on the others. I think it's well distributed. Efficiency always improves people, improves the time. Less time searching is going to make things easier. More time executing, right? Trusted information removes that friction that you may now have while you collaborate. Across all of these, the common theme is clear, right? When engineering information is controlled, everything's going to improve to some degree. Okay, so we've talked about the problem and what good looks like. Now let's talk a little bit about how this is achieved with Adept. So whether you're looking to do this on-prem or cloud-based as your trusted system of record for asset information across the entire life cycle, Adept ensures that the documents are not just stored, but remain accurate, controlled, and accessible. That means when someone pulls a drawing or a spec, they can trust that it reflects the current state of the plant. Adept also enables secure collaboration. This is especially important when you have contractors and external partners involved, making sure that you don't lose version control or you're introducing any sort of version risk. Critically, it supports engineering change management and plant configuration control. Adept is what prevents your configuration drift and keeps that physical plant aligned with the engineering definition. When you get the level of control, this level of control, you unlock tremendous benefits. You reduce errors and redesign cycles because teams are no longer working off outdated or conflicting information. You improve project plan handover because engineering data transitions cleanly from projects into operations. You reduce field surprises, those few unexpected issues that occur during startup and maintenance, because what's on paper matches reality. Ultimately, you enable safer, more reliable operations because decisions are based on a trusted, governed engineering information. When engineering information is controlled, connected, and trusted, operational performance follows. But Synergist software didn't stop in engineering document control. We also created Adept Catalyst and Adept Integrator to facilitate complete asset information lifecycle management, improving collaboration and systems integration. So capital projects require collaboration with contractors, suppliers, and external engineering partners. While some customers use Adept for this, others require SharePoint. Adept Catalyst turns external collaboration with SharePoint into a controlled extension of the engineering system of record. It controls what documents goes out to projects and ensure updates come back through review, approvals, and version control. So projects move faster and operations receive clean, reliable engineering documentation. Adept Catalyst accelerates project execution while preserving documentation integrity, reducing operational risk, rework, and closeout surprises. Adept Integrator is specifically built for system application integration. It connects Adept with business systems like ERP, CMMS, EAM, and SCADA to eliminate those data silos. It automates workflows and data exchanges across applications. It reduces the manual effort, input errors, schedule delays between systems. It keeps systems synchronized with accurate, up-to-date information. And the nice thing about Integrator is it offers out-of-the-box connectors to leading platforms, among which are SAP, Maximo, and Oracle P6, among others. With that, Craig, I'm going to turn it over to you for a product demonstration. Greg, if you're speaking, we
I
can't
think
hear
I
you.
would see it. So,
Yes,
thank
there you
you.
go.
Perfect. So on the screen here, we have the Adept web, one of the Adept web clients. And I thought during this presentation, we're just going to go through some of the tools that are inside of Adept and kind of point out how they might have been used by maintenance or plant engineers or the different parts that might be dealing with some of these document management control type issues that we've been talking about. So at its core, we want to be able to search and find documents as fast as possible. Adept creates a whole new set of tools for searching. One of those is full text search. If I type in a word or a phrase in the upper left-hand corner, I can get a list of results searching all the content of a number of different documents. For example, text-rich drawings like DWGs, text-rich PDF, Word documents, Excel spreadsheets, other CAD formats like DGN files or Inventor or SolidWorks. All these files just contain general text that might be wire numbers on an electrical drawing, asset tag numbers, a project number, a specific title or description. Having the ability to search using this full text gives users a whole new way of searching and finding documents that you don't have in Windows or SharePoint or a lot of other types of systems that you might be managing your documents, especially when it comes to those engineering-specific documents like AutoCAD. This list of documents you see here, if you notice the second column, Adept talks about the library path. You see like a folder path. Inside of Adept, we do use directory structures very similar to how you use Windows, but when you do a search, the folder structure becomes a lot less important because you're searching all the documents in the vault or repository that you have access to see. So it doesn't matter where it is in the system. If I've got permission to access it, when I do a search, it meets the criteria, I will find that document. So I don't need to drill into a very large, multi-level directory structure to find the document. Anytime I do a search, I'll find it real easily. In addition to searching for full text, I could also do some simple searching where I want to search based on file name. And I need all the files to start with a specific character string or something like that. And I can get a list of results. While that's really helpful, where Adept really gains more value is the ability to search on other metadata fields or properties of information. Here in this screen we call the search card, I can search on multiple fields and start thinking about other data that users know about documents than just the file name. Maybe you know a project number or you know a title or a description. Those fields all becomes kind of searchable. Or in this case here, I'm going to do a multi-field search. I'm going to find all the documents that the file name starts with the number 5 and that the project number starts with the number 5. So multi-field, wildcard, special character searches of all that metadata create other new ways for users to find documents. This, talking about metadata, this is one of the configurable interfaces that really allows Adept customers to, track and manage the data that makes sense to them. For example, here on this screen we call the data card, I can see an example of some metadata fields or properties like project name, project number. I might be tracking, the project manager for this document, where this document is located, in what state, city, site, and facility in the plant world. I might be tracking whether or not this document is going to be a turnover document. So as we're doing a capital project, we tag all the turnover documents, and then we do a simple little search, and we turn all those over when we go into, it shifts from a capital project to maintenance, as Liv was talking about, those turnover packages. Lots of different ways you can track and manage metadata here with simple pull downs, with related fields, or also we can talk about how the metadata can be extracted from AutoCAD title blocks or properties in an Excel spreadsheet or a Word document and have that bi-directional kind of link so the data doesn't even have to be entered twice. It's very easily imported from a document back into the data card and back and forth between the document and the data card. All the fields that you see here is searchable, reportable data, maybe about a transmittal that you're in reference to a third party or outside source you're working with documents, project information. All this becomes searchable resources, creating many new ways for users to find documents. In addition to searching, we can also create virtual folder structures where we now allow users to find documents with a couple of clicks and not even have to type in criteria. I'm going to sort all the documents by state, city, site, and facility. Now users can just really do with a simple click, here's all the documents that pertain to Texas, or I can drill into the different cities and just kind of filter my list. These virtual folder structures now allow users to find documents based on the metadata that we're putting in the data card. This is an example of where you talk to your user community and say, what do you know about a document when you need to find it? Can we create a structure so you can kind of click, click, click and find it in a fast, easy way? Users can always create favorites lists or save searches. Here's a list of all the documents that are currently being used in an as-built project that I'm working on. So I just saved it as a simple favorites list. Whenever I click on a document, I'm guaranteed this is the latest version of this document. I don't need to worry about whether there's a revision letter or number in the file name or anything like that. Adept guarantees the latest version of the document is always available to the user with a single click. If you want to look at additional information that Adept tracks, like the audit trail and revision history and things like that, then we turn on the document dashboard here, and we can start seeing a whole set of information that Adept automatically tracks for you about your documents. I can see a thumbnail, so I can see a small little preview of the document. I can see the audit trail that Liv mentioned, where we would see all the life cycle events that happen to that document. Whenever a document is viewed, renamed, copied, moved, checked out, checked in, modified, approved, rejected, anything that happens to that document, Adept tracks all those life cycle events. This is all searchable, reportable data by an Adept administrator, and it can also be searched by each individual Adept user if they want. An individual user can very easily query and look up maybe their specific information about their own audit trail. I found a document last Tuesday. What was the name of that file? I can't remember. I could very easily go look at all the documents I viewed in the last week or the last 30 days and real easily find that and that list. And now, yep, this is the document I viewed last Tuesday or whatever that date might be. The audit trail is available to both administrators and individual users, creating some nice little use cases of ways that data can be used. The version tab gets into tracking all the version and revision history of a document. I said the file name never changes. That's because the revision history is automatically created here in this version tab. When a file is checked out, if I want to make a change to a document, I just check that file out. That file is automatically put into a work in progress state, and now that another row will be added. Adept locks files that are in work in progress, so only one user can edit that file at any given time, while all other users have access to the last released version, maintaining a little bit of control over who's editing the file versus what people are accessing. In addition to version revision history, we can also talk about the relationships that exist between complex CAD documents like AutoCAD or Inventor, for example, where you might have one drawing inside of another drawing. Adept includes a whole set of functionality about CAD integration, where we extract attribute information from title blocks, we extract the reference information that you see here in the tree structure. By extracting the reference information, we'll maintain a reference integrity so that if you move or rename drawings around within Adept, the references will not break. This is extremely helpful to CAD users who get very frustrated when they go to open a drawing in AutoCAD, that's just stored in Windows, and some of the reference files are missing, and they either need to go redraw them or search all over to find them because somebody did a rename or a move, and now they don't have those reference files. Adept maintains a reference integrity, so those reference error messages don't happen any longer. In addition to that, we also can see how the reference information looks from a children perspective, or a non-CAD user also has the ability to look at where used information and look back up a tree so you can see what parents a child might have. This is all related to the CAD integrations that Adept provides. Having the ability to click on a document and also view it takes advantage of the Adept viewing technology that we have built into Adept. Adept's viewer will allow you to view hundreds of file formats without having those native applications on your computer. So now non-AutoCAD users or CAD users have the ability to view different CAD formats, taking advantage of using that CAD data outside of engineering in a read-only way. So here's an electrical drawing as an example of a schematic that I can easily view. I can also view 3D files and rotate and revolve them around, or someone might want to zoom in on certain areas of the document. We can create exploded views and allow users to see how things go together and maybe use all that data that's created in a 3D model to know how to assemble something out in the field or in the shop. Adept gives you the ability in a read-only way for non-CAD users to start using data in whole new ways that allows you to take advantage of that intellectual property. Something else that the viewer can do is also give you the ability to understand the differences between two documents. Here you can see I'm viewing an old version of this drawing. Next to it, I'm going to put the current version of it that I also looked at earlier, right here. And what you'll see now is I've got the old version and the new version next to each other. Wouldn't it be helpful for me to be able to overlay these on top of each other and compare them and now see the graphical differences? So Adept is maintaining that revision version history in that version tab. Now we're overlaying those two different drawings on top of each other, allowing you to compare or see the differences in them. So this takes the idea of what changed in a drawing to a much higher level, getting away from those little revision blocks that are sometimes in drawings where it says deleted detail B or added this or that. Those kinds of short descriptions really don't do justice to what might have changed or might not have changed in a drawing. Using a compare like this, you can really see the graphical differences. This compare can also be really helpful when you work with outside vendors or engineering firms or contractors. Did they change what I asked them to change in the drawing? Did anything else get changed? When I receive the drawing back, you can easily do an overlay to understand the changes that might have happened or occurred or not occurred that you were expecting. One other thing that the viewer helps you to do is, as you're going through workflows and approval processes, you can then use Adept, the viewer here, to mark up or redline the file, adding comments and notes to a document that might relate to an approval or a workflow review process. Here I can add some comments inside of like a little note that I might pin to a document and move around, or maybe I want to do a call out. Or maybe I want to draw a little shape around something. I'm a big fan of the clouds here, so I'm going to draw a little cloud. Non-CAD users can now add information in a read-only way to a file and then route the document through an assign, approve, or reject type process. This is all built into the viewer and gets into some of the lifecycle management that we talk about within the workflows or reviews that you can create inside of Adept. When you think about workflows and approvals and things like that, it's the ability to visualize how that workflow process is going and track it in a way that allows me to easily understand where it's sitting on whose desk. So I've got a number of different workflows that I've created here inside of Adept. Let's look at my as-built review workflow. Here's all the documents that are currently in the as-built review. I can see a status of who they're assigned to, and then I can also drill in a little bit further and look at what different steps these documents are at. So here's all the documents that are currently at my design engineering review step. If I highlight one of these individual documents and go back to my document dashboard and look at the workflow tab, I can easily see how this document's moving through this process, what step it's at, how long it's been sitting at certain steps. We can visualize and see, oh wow, these two documents are both on Chris's to-do list or assigned to Chris right now. Chris is on vacation. Maybe we want to reassign these to someone else. So I'm going to highlight those two, and I'm going to do a reassign kind of thing, or an unassign or assign it to somebody else, giving me the ability to keep documents moving forward. the workflows inside of Adept are configurable with whatever steps you want. You can create as many or few workflows as you want. Our customer Dow Chemical has so many workflows. They have a special naming convention for different locations that name the files so they can identify them. They have hundreds of workflows, which makes sense when they have so many locations. Visualizing the workflow, keeping processes moving forward, email notifications, when the workflow step starts, when workflows are completed, integrating those workflow steps to other business systems like maintenance or asset management systems that can incorporate the integrator. This is all tools that Adept just kind of starts to connect the dots with. Adept is a fully secure environment where you can set the security and the permissions and access that users have to documents. I mentioned earlier how we work with a very traditional kind of folder structure. I can assign rights and privileges to who gets access to these different folders. And if I don't have access to general documents, then that folder and that set of documents won't even appear as part of my search results or access. Some of our customers like to create a set of PDFs, consumable documents. Adept can work with that kind of process where you might isolate your CAD documents to specific designers and drafters, while other sets of documents are, specifically, those consumable PDFs. I kind of put all my PDF consumable documents in a released folder here. Adept can help with the batch creation of PDFs from DWG files and other CAD documents with what we call Publish Wave, another component of our solution that can automatically batch produce AutoCAD quality PDFs without even having AutoCAD on your computer. This would allow a non-CAD user maybe to approve 50 drawings. Then those are automatically turned into PDFs by a batch process called Publish Wave on another computer. So I can go back to work and not even worry about those PDFs. They're automatically being created for me. Just two other things I want to mention, and then we'll wrap up and go into the Q&A. Something that Adept does, I switched over here to our desktop interface, is to help you the ability to create or track a transmittal process. As you might be working with outside vendors or engineering firms or organizations, you might have a need to send a set of documents to that outside source, and you want to track who you're sending what to when. These PDF cover letters that Adept can produce are based on a template, and I don't have to type anything in to create this. I created the template, put my logo, and all this data that you see here is all driven from the metadata and from the document references and relationships that I created. I've worked with a number of organizations over the years that create these using spreadsheets or Word documents, and there's lots of manual typing. And when you see how easily Adept can just generate this based on a relationship and your tree structure, you can very easily generate these in a fast, easy, efficient kind of way. And one other thing that we do from a CAD integration perspective is we offer an interface inside of AutoCAD to make it much easier for those CAD users to work with those complex CAD documents in creating those references and relationships and modifying documents. This interface we call the task pane can easily allow users to do their CAD work while maintaining a relationship to all the other CAD documents and that reference integrity, as well as easily be checking them in, checking them out, and working inside of Adept at the same time. Liv, I think that's all that we wanted to cover. Let me switch back into the PowerPoint. I think you had a slide or two more to go.
Yes, I just have a summary slide. Perfect. Yes, let's go to wrap up. Let's go to the next slide. There we go. All right. So as we wrap up this webinar, thank you, Craig, for that great demonstration. Just as a summary takeaway, we all understand engineering information defines how a plant operates. Poor control creates real plant risk through configuration drift and things like that. Plants that implement asset information lifecycle management through a single trusted source like Adept to control their engineering document gains lots of benefits, more efficient projects, safer and more reliable operations, better compliance, better performance. And of course, it's the foundation for your digital operations. So the combination of Adept Integrator, and Adept Catalyst is really going to be your strategic advantage for that trusted asset information. And I think Gary or Jill, we have one more poll, and then we'll go to the queue.
We do. We can put that on your screen. So I'm going to leave this poll up on the screen here for you. How can we help you next? That is from Synergist Software. So if you guys could put your answers into that, I'll leave this up for a few seconds while you guys have a chance to answer. And then just in a moment here, we'll start the Q&A. Great information, Livia. Craig, thanks so much for the terrific presentation. Remember, if you have questions for them, please use that Ask a Question box. We'll get to as many questions as time allows. Know that anything that we don't get to today, if you have questions, we don't address them, we will post those answers on the Plant Engineering website. That's plantengineering.com. Easy to remember. Give you a few more seconds here. Actually, I'll leave this up while we start the Q&A.
Leave it up. I was going to add, Gary, I was just going to add one thing, which was obviously this is a demo, and you call and talk to somebody, schedule a call. That's all great. That last one, the Engineering Leader's Guide to EDMS, we created a very comprehensive collection of different challenges that people have, a little bit more granular than what we just saw today, what they are, how EDMS solves that, gives you some insight into how does that stack up against other solutions, gives you a feel for what you can do with EDMS. And so it's if you're just thinking of you're a tire kicker and you just want to see what it is that EDMS does and what challenges it can help you satisfy or achieve beyond just what we talked about today, it's a very good read if you're just interested.
Perfect. If you guys are ready, we'll jump right in here. We'll start with, how do you justify the business case for EDMS beyond document control?
You want to start with that, or I can give a top level thing. I think it's a good question to have, because I think most people sometimes look at EDMS and they underestimate it, and they think it's just document storage. But the reality is, as you've seen in the webinar today, it has huge operational impact. So whether that's faster projects or using in the plant to reduce rework or prevent errors, helping you with decision making, it really shows up right from the beginning of the project. So back to the life cycle of understanding that we start using it in design through capital project into operations. I think companies can very easily quantify it. I think the Dow example showed that with those 5 different use cases, and remembering that their original mandate was really just to make it more searchability greater, but then found other use cases for it. So I think, if you're embarking on the journey of an EDMS, start like a Dow, where you've got a very fairly narrow view of what you want to use it for, and then find ways to build in other use cases. I don't know, Craig, if you want to add anything to that.
Actually, you nailed it. I really wouldn't add more to that.
Okay. All right. Good. Yeah, I think it's a good case study, because it does show you the different things that you can use it for, and whatever's in your imagination is probably doable in some sort of fashion.
Right. We only have a few minutes left here. I'll try to get maybe 2 more questions in. One of our users said, we have an older facility that has had the original hand-drawn pre-CAD drawings scanned and saved in either a TIFF or a JPEG format. How would Adept handle these types of drawings?
I can take that. That's a very common question. Adept stores any type of file you've created, so TIFFs and JPEGs and a number of different file formats like that. Old GP4s is very common for those to be brought into Adept. With the way we wrap around your existing folder structure, those files will be available in Adept with that standard folder structure that you have. Or we can also start talking about bulk or importing or batch updating metadata about those documents, maybe, to create new ways to find them. If they're text-rich TIFFs or text-rich documents, that might also be something we can full-text search. So that's a very common thing that we address with Adept.
Beautiful. How much of this is out of the box, and how much needs to be bespoke programming?
Actually, this is 100% out of the box. The core Adept functions that I was talking about today don't require any programming or coding or scripts. It's all configuration and picks and clicks. The core Adept, and then we mentioned the integrator. That's a separate tool that not every company needs, so that's a separate server. But all the revision control and audit trail and workflow and check-in, check-out, all that, that's all just out of the box.
Perfect. We're going to do the lightning round here. I'll see how many more I can get in. If one drawing is being reviewed during, say, a design process, can Adept summarize on one page the comments from several individuals reviewing the same drawing?
You're getting into like a collaborative type review process. Right now, our review process is one individual at a time, but we are talking about adding that as a capability for more collaborative. That's probably something we'll have in the future.
Got it. Does Dow use an individual hub for each case, or do they run out of one hub?
They primarily run out of one hub and then are using something that Liv mentioned called replication. They do have some other hubs, but primarily it's all in one hub, and then we're distributing documents globally.
Got it. Unfortunately, guys, I think I'm going to leave it there. Great presentation. Thank you, Livia, Craig, for all of your terrific information today. We really enjoyed hearing about your expertise and hearing a little bit more about the products.